Destiny 2's Kepler and Portal have some big issues, it seems. What are we cooking up today in Destiny drama and news? On Tuesday, Bungie had a second Edge of Fate reveal stream. Destiny 2's new, smaller expansion that comes out in 2 weeks. It was more informative than week 1, which was mostly a retread of old information. Whereas this time, we focused more on the expansion itself and its Kepler location, and the fundamental loop Destiny is meant to have going forward with its new Portal system. The presentation was better, certainly, but now we can debate the nature of what was shown, and the general sense I'm seeing is that the audience is still not exactly giving all this a standing ovation. Few seem to be excited about what's coming, and those that are may be the biggest of superfans, a group that Bungie takes for granted as they try to instead get lapsed players to return or welcome new ones to Destiny 2 after 11 years now. A tall order. And so far, Edge of Fate and the Frontiers era does not seem like it's going to do that. That's a fair criticism so far and a fair introduction to the topic. If I'm giving my opinion, I would say that I agree with this, that what Bungie's approach is and what the Destiny community is expecting and where we're at, it's kind of like a temperature check, right? Think of it like that. You know, every step of the way as we lead week by week into a new expansion, there's basically a temperature check. People are going to be more or less excited. There's going to be things that are going to increase pre-orders substantially. I'll give you a good example is that when Bungie announced the Star Wars DLC, you know, people were pretty excited. I mean, there was some mixed opinions. Some people are like, hey, I don't want Star Wars in Destiny 2, but you know, it got a lot of buzz at least, right? It moved the needle substantially, right? Right now with Destiny 2's most recent Edge of Fate reveal stream, I really struggle to see it moving the needle that much. I don't think that the pre-orders, which are currently very low, were increased very much after that second reveal stream, which is quite unfortunate and shows that Bungie is really struggling to understand what marketing looks like post the final shape for Destiny 2. Kepler and the Edge of Fate. The event opened with a new story launch trailer that was actually quite cool, leaning into the time travel aspect of what's going on in Kepler and channeled, of all games, Kontrol. I liked the spot a lot. I don't know anything about what they're talking about with Kontrol. Everyone keeps mentioning this. What is Kontrol? What is this? Why does everyone keep talking about this? You're not talking about the game mode inside Crucible, obviously. So what are we talking about here? And to comment specifically on the trailer went hard. I liked it. Was that the first time we ever saw phones in Destiny 2? Other than like a selfie emote? I think it's the first time. Phones don't exist until now. What is this, Kontrol game? Or is it a game or is it a movie? What we got here? You will have to fight. Oh shit. This is what they're comparing it to? I don't know. Everyone was saying that though. What is Kontrol? I need AI to help me here. I need the intelligence of a supercomputer. Give me a brief definition of the game Kontrol, as if I'm a Titan main. Kontrol is a third-person action-adventure game developed by Remedy Entertainment, released in 2019. It follows a secret government agency dealing with paranormal phenomena, provides supernatural powers, shifting environment, and a narrative-driven experience. Nice. It's part of the Alan Wake universe. All right, listen, I'm getting educated big time here today. What is the Alan Wake universe? Dude, I've just went down a deep rabbit hole. If you search Kontrol Hotline on YouTube, thank you. I really appreciate the help. Sometimes it's hard trying to decipher what's going on. Kontrol Hotline? Interesting. Okay. I can see where, yeah, I can definitely, okay. Now I can see where we're getting this from. This is why everyone's referencing Kontrol. I can see it now. Okay, I get it. All right, let's get on to the next part. The zone is strange. The aesthetic seems rather underwhelming compared to really all the last major expansions, with ones like the final shape, which the zone was incredible, right? It's the Pale Heart. The Witch Queen, Beyond Light, and even Lightfall have a clear art direction. Kepler? Besides, there's a lot that isn't shown, but the zones look like some sort of fallen sewer system. Oh no. The fallen sewer system, dude. The fallen sewer system. That is actually too true. And everything from the destination armor to the new weapons doesn't feel like it fits with any sort of coherent theme. This is not somewhere Destiny drops the ball. I agree. The art direction of this one feels odd, right? Obviously, it's not a fallen sewer system. It's like a dungeon, and so like it's meant to go deeper and deeper. But it definitely, like, visually does not seem very appealing, especially when you compare it to previous destinations. The campaign was briefly shown, and Bungie said that there would be some sort of playlist system for campaign missions that would take you back to them with modifications. Nice. We talked about that. The main activity of the expansion seems to be taking place within the general map and its zones. A mix of a public event and a larger scale offering like Vex Incursions as a way to farm gear, meant to be harder as you move up in world tiers, a system that I think is interesting, but the activity seems a bit strange. Another activity, one that appears only so often on the map, was mentioned. One that really sounds like Vex Incursions, but that wasn't detailed in any meaningful capacity. That's the extent of the built-in Kepler activities, it seems. Bungie briefly touched on Kepler and the expansion being compared to Destiny 1's Rise of Iron, a comparison they previously made, but says it was more along the lines of the size of the zone and things like that. The Plaguelands were not terribly big in Rise of Iron, but of course, Edge of Fate lacks big additions like strikes and Crucible maps. As for the map, this appears to be small enough where you can't use a sparrow, and the main form of transportation is turning into an electric ball and zipping around. Okay, and now the portal. I think that the comparison to Rise of Iron is a tough one, but they're also doing 2 smaller size expansions, so people keep leaning on that quite a bit, where they're like, oh, you can't compare this to Rise of Iron because Rise of Iron was for 1 full year, whereas this is meant to be for 6 months. So it's like, it's hard to compare it to anything else, but we're always going to compare it to the last annual expansion. And even if you want to half that, if you want to half the amount of content that came out with the last annual expansion and say, okay, well, it's going to be delivered half now and half later, then it needs to be half, right? Like, it can't be less than half, otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. And right now, it's looking like substantially less than half of a normal expansion. So I think that it's just not convincing, Bear. It's not very convincing, right? Now the portal. The portal is concerning to me. First, solo ops appear to be limited to a few Crucible modes that seemingly don't allow pre-made teams, but otherwise only PvE lost sectors you can modify to increase their difficulty. As of yet, they do not appear to have figured out any solo content that can be played here. I was under the impression they'd invent something new for that, but that does not seem to be the case yet. So yeah, that's part of the biggest criticism of the portal is, while it does add some maybe streamlined, some frictionless elements to jumping into Destiny 2, you just boot up the game and click a button and you're in something quickly. It does also come with the downside of it being a lot of just the old stuff that we've already done. And obviously we do need to do our new power grind in Destiny 2, which no one is particularly enthusiastic about. But now we have to do our new power grind for the 11th year in a row while doing old activities, which is also like, I mean, maybe the modifiers spice them up enough that it becomes fun, but they really need to consider adding some new stuff in. The Fireteam based portal was a somewhat mocked demonstration which focused on all things a Beyond Light era Empire hunt of all things. Why'd they do that? A 5-year-old activity updated with a 1,000,000 health Briggs and a bunch of champions and Banes thrown in. Again, there does not seem to be any new content in here, a mix of old strikes, seasonal activities, and such. It may fill out in time, but for now, it's just a whole lot of old stuff with a new modifier system. Yeah. I have one fundamental question about the new modifier system where you add bonuses and penalties as you try to get higher scores to farm gear. Using the system in a match-made experience for Fireteam Portal or the Pinnacle Portal of just exotic missions right now would indicate the only way you can truly customize this to your liking is to be running this with a pre-made team who can agree on all the mods. I have no idea how this is going to work with Fireteam Finder. Very interesting. As unless you're all on comms and spend 10 minutes doing modifiers, that seems tough. A normal playlist appears to run with just a series of set modifiers that you cannot alter at all, sort of negating the point of the system. This feels like it's going to be very strange in practice. So he brings up a valid point here, which is that, everyone has to agree on the selective modifiers, and you're actually going to be changing your builds and your weaponry due to whatever modifiers you put on. So could be some friction there in regards to how you do that. But there are some preset ones, right? And you could also just go down in difficulty. I think that if it is so difficult that Fireteam Finder teams really struggle with this, that just incentivizes people to, try and either go down the tier list to a lesser difficult tier, or alternatively, you're going to have to really take your time and find some really valuable teammates, build some friends up, because it may be that difficult to farm this at tier 5. We don't know exactly just how difficult it will be to get the highest tier rewards for that. But it does seem to incentivize aspirational content and adding a challenge into existing content in Destiny 2. So I think that that is a push in the right direction, especially because it scales, right? It's a spectrum of difficulty. It's not just everyone has to do this hard thing. You can go up and down on the scale with your fire team, finder team. And if you feel like you're just getting absolutely destroyed on the highest difficulty, then you can just, incrementally go down until you can successfully clear. I'm glad Bungie showed more this time around, but I don't think what we learned is all that reassuring in some ways. Confirm some fears about what's coming with the expansion and in this new Frontiers era, or rather the lack of what's coming. It's going to be a tough sell, I fear. That's tough. That's tough. The article is just a hater. I don't think they're just a hater, because being a hater is just hating on something regardless of, evidence or like merit, but we're actually we're actually questioning the content that's been showed to us, and we're just sort of giving feedback. And I think it's really important, and I've mentioned this many times before recently because we've given a decent amount of critical feedback to Bungie, is that it's important that we're honest about our feedback, because if we aren't honest about the feedback, then Bungie will continue to keep these patterns going, right? But if we really give them a strong pushback on things like this, then it sends a powerful message that they're going to have to set the bar higher, right? There's a certain point in Destiny content and in a Destiny player's journey where they're given so little, or they're just uninterested in the next expansion, that they don't buy, they don't play, they don't engage. And that's the absolute worst thing to Destiny, and that's the thing that Bungie hates the most, is apathy. They don't want apathy. They don't want people to be like, yeah, forget all this, right? I'm not buying, right? So I think that it's good to give your feedback, whether it's positive, whether you're like, hey, I'm actually looking forward to the new system, I'm looking forward to the new raid. That's perfectly fine. You're more than welcome to do that. But it's also okay to give negative feedback, as long as it's done in a constructive manner, If you're just like, everyone at Bungie is stupid and they all should be fired today, it's like, that's not particularly constructive. There's nothing they can really do with that. It's better to be like, okay, well, this is what you presented with the Edge of Fate. This is, point 1, point 2, point 3. And I strongly disagree with points 2 and 3, for reasons, 1, 2, and 3, it's like articulated thought here, right? We don't have to just bash, and this is not an article bashing by any means. This is Paul Tassi, giving his honest opinion about what he felt about the second reveal stream. And I agree with his opinions largely here. In fact, I don't think there was anything that I disagreed with this. And I think most people that would disagree with it maybe should take a step back and really think about, what it is that we're getting with all of this. We're kind of riding on the hopes that there's some secretive stuff, maybe, that Bungie hasn't revealed. It's not going to sell people. Like, Bungie can't just be like, hey, buy the Edge of Fate, have some secret stuff we haven't shown you yet, It's not the best play. Let's see here. We got Crimson says the only reason the Brig had so much health was because they put the stupid lower body shot damage for higher precision damage modifier on, so they couldn't break the faceplate off for literal minutes. Yeah, so that's an interesting talking point here. So during their playtest of the new activity, portal activity, they added a modifier that makes it so body shot damage does less. And they did so on an activity that has Brigs. So that would be a terrible idea, right? We should all learn from their mistake. And whenever we do an activity that has Brigs, let's never put that modifier on. And because of that, the Brig had like literally a bajillion health. And it was kind of funny. And I think that experiences like that are kind of funny and quirky in Destiny 2. I don't hate that that happens. That's a detriment to you and to your team, but it can also make for funny moments where you're like, oh my God, remember when we fought this Brig and it took us, 5 minutes to kill this fucker? Let's never put that modifier on, right? I don't hate that. And there will be some activities where that modifier might be beneficial. You never know. Certain builds, certain loadouts, certain team synergies. We're going to go into it, and people that are like super sweaty tryhards, people that like solo the witness and shit like that, these guys are going to come together and put together the best builds and min-max the best loadouts and clear these activities in record speed. And they're going to completely blow Bungie out of the water. Like, whatever Bungie's predictions are, they're just going to completely mow through this stuff like it's fucking nothing, right? And then once they do so, then it goes from the top down. It goes from the best players, the sweaty tryhards, the world's first raiders, and their builds and their loadouts down and down and down and down until it's very public information and common what's the best modifiers to put on any given activity. That's all right by me, it just resets the meta to some degree. So what are we really paying for if it's free to play? You're really getting 3 things. You're getting a campaign, you're getting a planetary destination, and a raid. And they're pretty confident that between those 3, that is going to earn your pre-order as a returning or new Destiny player. However, The results seem to be a little bit lower on the pre-order side, which is unfortunate. Hopefully they can turn things around. Hopefully it does better than that. Maybe they're holding some stuff that we haven't seen yet, but that's where it's at right now. Let me know what you think.